When you think of the pyramids of Giza, you probably picture this single, massive, iconic wonder, right? But the real story? Well, it's a lot more personal than that. This isn't just a story about giant monuments. It's really about a family, a dynasty, and a legacy that was carved in stone one generation at a time.
So let's get right into it. The three main pyramids you see there, they were built by a father, his son, and his grandson, Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. Now imagine having to build your own legacy right in the shadow of the person who came before you. So what story was each of these pharaohs actually trying to tell with their final resting place?
We're going to start with the son, Pharaoh Khafre. Now, his dad was Khufu, the guy who built the Great Pyramid. Talk about a tough act to follow, right? But Khafre, he had a really clever plan up his sleeve. When you look at the Giza Plateau, your eye is almost always drawn to Khafre's pyramid, the one in the middle. It looks bigger, more dominant, even more so than the so-called Great Pyramid right next to it. But here's the thing about ancient engineering. Sometimes it's all about perspective.
And it all comes down to this number, 10 meters, or about 33 feet. You see, Khafre's pyramid was actually shorter than his father's. So what's the secret to its apparent height? He built it on a chunk of bedrock that was 10 meters higher. It's a brilliant optical illusion that let him honor his father's massive achievement while still making sure his own monument was the most prominent thing on the skyline. Pretty smart.
Khafre's pyramid has another really unique feature. If you look really close, right at the very top, you can see that smooth section. Those are the original casing stones. All the pyramids were once covered in this polished white limestone that would have just gleamed in the sun. And Khafre's is the only one left that gives us a tiny glimpse of that original, absolutely breathtaking splendor.
Okay, so let's move on to the next generation, Khafre's son, Menkaure. Now, he looked at what his dad and his grandpa built and decided, you know what? I'm going in a completely different direction. He wasn't even going to try to play the game of height. And you can really see the difference in scale here. Khafre's pyramid soars to almost 144 meters, while Menkaure's is less than half that, just over 65 meters tall. So he clearly wasn't trying to compete on size. What was his plan then?
Menkaure basically decided that if he couldn't build the biggest pyramid, he would build the most luxurious one. His legacy wasn't going to be about ambition measured in meters, but about distinction measured in materials.
And he did this by covering the lower levels of his pyramid in beautiful, incredibly expensive red granite, which had to be brought all the way from Aswan in the south. So while the other pyramids were cased in brilliant white limestone, Menkaure's had this rich reddish-brown base. It was a huge statement of wealth and a totally unique look that set his monument apart forever.
So to put it side by side, we have two totally different approaches to leaving a mark. The son, Khafre, uses a clever trick to create this illusion of being the biggest, and the grandson, Menkaure, uses precious materials to create a monument of unique style. Two pharaohs, two completely distinct statements.
But these individual choices about height, materials, they were only part of the story. The pyramids didn't just exist in isolation. To really get what they were all about, we have to zoom out, because each one was really the centerpiece of a much, much larger complex.
They were all part of what's called a pyramid complex. And this wasn't just a tomb. Think of it more like a sprawling, ceremonial city for the afterlife. All of it meticulously planned and just full of symbolic structures. Yeah, a typical complex was like a whole city for the dead. It had the main pyramid, of course, but also a valley temple down by the Nile and a mortuary temple right at the pyramid's base where people would leave offerings. There were often smaller pyramids for the queens and a long covered causeway that connected the temples. And at Giza, this whole setup also included the mysterious Great Sphinx, which we think was part of Khafre's complex. All these parts had to work together, like a grand machine for the pharaoh's journey into the great beyond. So when you put it all together, the family drama, the individual choices, these interconnected complexes, you start to see the Giza Plateau not as three separate projects, but as one single, incredible, multi-generational masterpiece.
It's really just one unfolding story. Khufu, the father, sets this impossibly high bar. Then Khafre, the son, cleverly meets that challenge with a bit of illusion. And finally, Menkaure, the grandson, comes along and completes the whole necropolis with a final artistic flourish.
And that's really the key takeaway here. It's a story of ambition shown through a clever illusion versus distinction shown through precious materials. Each ruler found their own unique way to secure their place in eternity, right there alongside their family. So the next time you see that famous skyline, think about this. Are you looking at three tombs? Just three eternal homes for three kings? Or
are you looking at something far more compelling? A timeless and very human story of a family's ambition, their legacy, and their dynasty. All of it written across the desert sand.